All right. Well, thanks everyone for being here and welcome to the Microsoft booth here in the Green Zone. So I really appreciate you all being here today. And I'm really thrilled to introduce two of my colleagues that were able to join me today, Satish Thomas and Shelly Blackburn. So we're really excited to be here today to talk about how Microsoft is using data to build solutions to help our company and others actually be empowered to use these solutions for more sustainable outcomes in particular. This has been a really important time for climate action. Our company, as well as so many others here at COP28, are stepping up their efforts to meet these ambitious goals for climate action. For us, that looks like us being carbon negative by 2030, and then to reduce all of our historical emissions since our founding by 2050 as well. So with that in mind, we want to dig a little deeper into what does it mean to reach these targets, how are we using data to get there, and what do these solutions look like in practice. So with that, let me have my two colleagues introduce themselves. Satish, you want to go first?
All right. So first of all, good to see everyone here. So my name is Satish Thomas. I'm the Corporate Vice President on the engineering side for Microsoft Industry Clouds, including the Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability. So good to be here.
Good to see everyone here. My name is Shelly Blackburn. I'm the Global Vice President of our go-to-market for sustainability.
So what's really exciting, this has been several COPs for me, and I will say the energy here is amazing. I don't think I've done events like this, frankly, at all in the maybe 15 years or so that I've been coming to these climate conferences. I mean, for those that aren't actually able to be in the room, this room is incredible, and the energy in this room, let alone this pavilion, is really quite electric. And so it's really exciting to be here and to be able to talk to you about
And it's
what we're
your
doing.
COP number 14?
I think it's 14.
There
I
you
started at COP 12, but there were some breaks in between.
There you go.
And that's why she gets a pin. And
Oh, there you go. Okay.
I do. I get my SDG
All
pin.
right.
Microsoft's a big supporter
Goals.
of the SDG goals, so I had to represent that as well. So I thought, for some of this audience here, let's get into the weeds. You've got two experts with me on the panel today, and I thought, you see a lot of the signs around us today talking about it, but when it comes to sustainability, it really starts with getting your ESG data in play and really understanding what that looks like. And so I thought for all of us here, for a more technical conversation, but also one that is more applicable and practical and really kind of how do you concretize what we're doing, let's talk about how we get our data in order. So with that, I would love to start with Shelly to talk a little bit more about the Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability, how it's playing a major role for our customers, what's new in this space, and really how we're doing more in this area. So let's start with Shelly.
Yeah, I would say first and foremost, I have the opportunity to talk to customers all around the world. And it's a common theme all around the world that their data estate is not in order. So number one, you can't measure what you can't report. And, or rather you can't measure if you don't have the data in place. So first and foremost, I think the conversations that I've had with customers is, hey, we need to report. The regulations are coming. We need to report on this and that. But the common theme is, do you have your data state in order? And the common answer is no. So what we've done at Microsoft is first and foremost is taking the learnings from our own experience, and we've built an incredible solution and platform for ESG. And many of our customers are saying, thank you, Microsoft, help me on this journey. And oh, by the way, not only help us on this journey, but take the learnings and the lessons that you've had and incorporate that into how you'll help us get to ultimately what we want to do is take action and get to business outcomes. So Melanie, that's what I'm hearing around the world.
That's great. So what you're really talking about is a real large echo here.
Yes.
That data technology is key to unlocking the growth in this economy. And really when we think about it, let's think about it in these three stages or these three categories, if you will. First, get your data and your ESG data in order. Second, let's take action with that on sustainability initiatives. And then three, how do you leverage that sustainability for business growth?
Right.
So Satish, I'd love to know, what does it mean to get your ESG data ready? And why is this so important?
Yeah. So I think, a prereq for everything we're talking about here is kind of getting that data estate in place, right? So across scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, and your data could be sitting in many, many places, right? And I think one of the biggest hindrances of all of our sustainability journeys is the lack of having that harmonized data on top of which you can derive insights and drive action. So this is where it all starts and ends with data in this context. So this is where we are working on this product called the Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability that helps customers along that journey. So who's heard of the Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability before they came to COP? Okay. And now that you've come to COP, hopefully it's all hands. So essentially the Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability, what it allows you to do at the core is what we call the ESG data lake. So it allows you to ingest data, be it from transactional, operational, or whatever systems it might be, unify it, help you derive insights on top of it and be able to act on it. So this is where, you might have heard of this thing called AI. So that's where we're very excited. On top of that data estate, you're able to build AI models such as what if analysis, right? What if you change the item that goes into one of your products and did something else? Forecasting. So that's where data being very critical, and the fact that we're able to harmonize it, derive insights, and apply AI on top of that data, and then finally do something with it in your sustainability journey is I think a big part of what we're all trying to do. And the more and more we can build tooling and automation so we can focus on what really matters, I think we'll go a long way in this journey.
So what I love about that answer is you kind of give a little bit more context to where we are with this data problem and this data challenge.
Yep.
But one thing I'm learning, and I just started at Microsoft earlier this year, and so I'm still new to the Microsoft journey in this space, and it's really exciting to see. And we actually started this journey for Microsoft back in, I think it was 2012.
Yep.
So well beyond, I was here for a COP, I'm sure, at that time. But now, we've launched our big commitments in 2020. We're 3 years into it. And since joining the company, I've gotten to learn a little bit more about how you take these complex systems, what we're doing with these complex systems. It's not just a way to benefit one organization, but it actually benefits so many. And it is a way to show collective progress towards these sustainability commitments, not just for the United States or for our company, but really how do we get on track as a world across many of these countries. And so one of the things that I've been thinking more about is, yes, it starts with us as customer zero. And I think you and I have been partnering really closely on what we call the customer zero journey. Customer zero is how we affectionately call Microsoft as customer zero of the products that we use and that we build. Given our deep history in environmental reporting and work on sustainability, this has been just an incredibly strong partnership with the engineering team to take some of the gaps we saw in the market, some of the learnings that we have built internally, and actually be able to deliver that to the world. And so I'd love for you if you could tell a little bit more about how this customer zero journey is going, what we're doing together, so that those here are saying, well, how does this relate to me? How do I do it? You get a little sense that it's not just something that we're building for others, but we built it for ourselves as well.
Yeah. So I think this is where, like as Melanie mentioned, Microsoft as a company has been on this journey for a long time. So one of the things that Microsoft does a lot is, hey, a problem that we're trying to solve for ourselves, if it's relevant for many, many customers out there, let's productize and bring that innovation to life, right? So if you look at Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability, Melanie and her team are customer zero, meaning we use Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability for our sustainable journey internally. But more importantly, the requirements gathering and everything, there's a very tight loop there. And then along that journey, Microsoft at the limit is a partner company. So in addition to just having Microsoft as a customer, how do we leverage our partner ecosystem so that partners can build on top of this ESG data lake that's part of the Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability is a key part of how we meet the scenarios across every region, across every industry. And I think beyond the sustainability part, I always pause when I say Microsoft Cloud for sustainability, because if you look at all the capabilities that we use around data unification, AI, driving that actionable insight through the Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability, it's built on the Microsoft Cloud. So it's built on Azure Planet Scale infrastructure. It's using Microsoft Fabric for data. It's using our AI stack. It's using Teams for collaboration. So that's where we feel like, of course, having Microsoft itself use the Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability allows us to, and our partner ecosystem allows us to rapidly iterate so we can meet as much of the needs of our customers and do it on behalf of our customers. So long journey there. How you can bring in data from all your various data sources, Scope 1, Scope 2, Scope 3, whether it's Microsoft data sources or other. In fact, most of our customers bring in a lot of data from non-Microsoft systems, etc. How do you harmonize it, shape it? How do you do AI on top of it? And the partner ecosystem that makes it all real. So this is where the product kind of ships month by month. And in the coming months, we'll have more updates on some AI and co-pilot related scenarios on top of all of this data. So this is my excited face. We're very excited about what we're working on behalf of our customers.
It's also, as a sustainability officer, it's my excited face because while it's great to have teams working really hard on reporting, what I want to be building is teams on reduction and sustainability measures and really focusing in on our core operational footprint, what we're doing for that and our customers. So it's great to see having a process that can pull all this data in that, at one point I heard it came in on Post-it notes. So I'm glad we've gone to Excel, but we're no longer the Post-it note stage. But I would love to turn to you, Shelly, because what we're hearing about is, this is one application around sustainability, but it seems like this opens up so much more business opportunity and business growth. And this is something you hear from our customers all the time. So could you share a bit more about where this goes from here? Where do you see the potential for growth is from something like this?
Well, I think first and foremost, our customers are saying, hey, this is great. Thank you for making this simple for us to really report on scope 1, 2, and 3. But where we really want to get to is our business outcomes and how to transform our business. So this helps us get there faster. And so give you an example of the real business outcome that we've been working on with several different customers is Agder Energy, a customer out of Norway. They were a very, very successful energy company for decades upon decades. But what they were seeing is their customers were starting to put rooftop solar panels in play. They were starting to use electric cars, plugging in electric cars, and this prompted them to, I have to change the way I do business. And so what we've been helping them with Azure and from a overall IoT perspective is to get to a win-win and an outcome that would benefit their business so that they can start being more attractive to their customers about changing and transforming the grid. And so this is just an example of, well, this is absolutely what we need to put in place for customers to be able to report and grab that data. In the end, what we really want to help customers with is those business outcomes for a more sustainable future.
So what I've been seeing here, and I think what has been sort of really just a thrilling part for my participation so far in this COP. And again, we're only day 3 in. It's a bit like dog years. I feel like it's been a lot longer than 3 days for some of us. I certainly walked more steps in the last 3 days than I did the last 2 weeks combined. But what I would say that I would love to hear a little bit more about is part of what that example you just gave is there's these new market opportunities that are developing, and we're finding ways to capture and take technology innovation to capture these new markets. I would say one of the main walkaways I have so far of this conference is the world is changing, and it's changing. It may not be changing as fast as we want it to be changing, but the world is changing, and that the business models of the past are no longer the business models of the future. You just walk around these pavilions, you see new types of cars, new types of batteries, just new ways of doing business in a low carbon economy, in an economy that's changing and transitioning to cleaner, more renewable sources of power and carbon-free sources of power, which is going to require businesses to shift as well along with it. And so I'd love to know, it's sort of this idea of like, what's hot right now? What are those emerging markets for transformation that you're seeing, having been here? And how are we using technology to capture some of those new markets that are out there?
So in preparation for this, I was trying to think of which ones were the great examples because there are so many right now, Melanie. So
I'm not asking you to pick your favorite. It's just one indicative example.
And to your point, I think one of the ones that comes to the top is SGS, which they're a leading inspection and certification company and provider. I'm sure many of you have heard of them, but really what we've done with this company as well is they're targeting new markets in China from the standpoint of real-time oil conditions. They're taking a look at data for wind farm operators. And this one is a very interesting to me is ultimately what we did was we put in place a new type of go-to-market for them, which is called OCM Online. And basically what this is helping do is establish wind farm operators a new efficient and diligent way to equip their maintenance and operations service faster. It's just one example of how we're helping many customers find new business models. And I think to your point, this is really what we can do once we get the data estate in order, is manage the data, and then effectively turn that into how we can help our customers with new type of business outcomes.
Well, this is great. I think we probably are close to time. I don't even know where my time checks are, but I think we are. So what I'd like to do is actually turn it to all of you. We'd love to have some questions from the audience. Ask us your questions. Consider and ask me anything. There's also Sahela on the other side of that wall, and she could answer all of your sustainability questions as well, probably better than myself. But I thought, this is a good time to just turn it to you all to hear of any questions you have before we wrap up. So. And if you can introduce yourself, that would be great.
Thank you so much.
You're good.
It's on.
For sharing the exciting information. My name is Toy. I am a founder of Silicon Valley Youth Climate Action, a youth-led nonprofit that's been doing a lot of work in the policy space, training next generation of youth leaders to tackle climate change. So my question for you is that based on my observation, it seems like the private sector is leading at the forefront of sustainability. I feel like government agencies, public agencies are kind of like behind. They don't understand a lot of these things that we're talking about, that you're talking about. Do you have a plan to engage public agencies, government? Maybe they can be your customers. That would be a good potential market for the company. Is that a plan? The second quick question is that do you have data to collect all the work that's been done from your customer base to really show, hey, this is the impact, because we don't have time to waste, but this is what we accomplish collectively together to really show that, hey, this can be done.
So great. I'll take
Yeah.
to it. So I realized I did not introduce myself when I started. So I've actually spent the last 2 decades in policy, working in government. I recently was in the Biden administration. Also, I've been an advisor to John Kerry for several years when he was Secretary of State, and deeply committed to the public policy and the government engagement when it comes to climate action, as well as engaging with a variety of sectors, including the youth. So to your question about, how are we involving government sector and working with private sector as well, I'll say 2 things on that front. First, private sector leadership is also government enabled. So the reason why Microsoft's able to make some of these bold commitments and take some of this action is there are incredible policies that are providing the tailwinds to this accelerated action. In the United States, that takes the form of the Inflation Reduction Act. In Europe, you have these policies advancing electric vehicles that are upending the internal combustion engine market as well, and providing incredible opportunities for growth there. So we really see this blended relationship between private sector leadership coupled with the policy enablement to help us accelerate that progress. Part of that means we have a strong engagement with governments around the world. We've actually released several policy papers on energy policy, carbon policy. We did one on water as well, where we talk about what does Microsoft want to see in the policy environment to help accelerate this change. And we work with them around the world to help do this. One of the ones that we're here talking about at this COP is clean energy. We want to see the clean energy grids transformed around the world in key markets that work for us, but for others as well. And we really want to support and enable that. So that's how we're partnering with governments, is to really express to them where our priorities are, where our needs are, and how do we work together with them on that. On the youth engagement, as well as the broader engagement piece, I talk about some of the things you'll see here, the AI tools that are out there. What's so exciting is it helps democratize access to complex information so that more and more people can become sustainability leaders, sustainability advocates. There's so much information out there. And what I really like about the demo on the other side is our report, our sustainability report that we put out every year, which I hold dearly. It's a long document. It's a pretty long PDF document. And it may not be as accessible to many people, but that person on the other side of the wall is trained on that report. So if you prompt Sahela with questions about the report, she'll give you a really nice natural language answer to what that is, which I think is a great way to empower more youth leaders to engage in sustainability as well. And then your third question was on
Data.
Oh, yes, the collective data. Yes. So what I would say, the other thing I would just flag on that. So to your question about how do we help show, how progress is happening, whether it's governments or private sector, I'd love to just highlight one thing that we announced earlier this week, actually, which is Microsoft and the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, the host of this with the UAE. Microsoft and the UNFCCC announced a partnership this week to Microsoft to serve as the data platform, the data provider for the Enhanced Transparency Framework and the Global Stocktake. So we're going to partner with the UN Framework Convention to help countries put into a digital sort of template and digital layer what we're doing on, helping to track the progress we're making from governments on the NDCs and provide it in a way where it's searchable and you can turn insights and action from that type of information. Because right now it's these, having participated in these processes before, it's a really onerous, complex, long time to do all these NDCs and your quarterly reporting and your the global stock take. And to have a digital tool to do that, to simplify the process, but also make it easier to analyze and turn insights from that, I think that's going to be an incredible way to help the world see the progress that's being made, but also where we're not making as much progress. Already today, the global stock take that came out in August shows the world's not on track. So we understood that. I think from that, but that to get to that stage took a lot of sort of complex data collection that was a bit more time consuming. Imagine being able to get to that stage faster. Being able to have a digital way to do it. So that's sort of one of the things that we announced this week. And I think it's gonna be really exciting to see over the next several years for the next stock take and these NDCs under the transparency framework, how we're helping to get these tools into people's hands faster. You're good. Yep.
Yes.
This is Anurag. My question is for Satish. Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Satish, question is around MSM. Will Microsoft pivot MSM to the industry solution where the technology supports the innovation?
Yeah, it's actually a good question. So the way we think about Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability, so part of my team also works on industry solutions. So things like Microsoft Cloud for retail, manufacturing, all that good stuff. So the way we think about sustainability is it's a cross-industry solution, right? So we have customers in retail, financial services, energy using these solutions. So what we're seeing is this as a base solution. We're seeing partners tailor this for industry, but we also have our own industry teams that builds repeatable patterns by industry. Because ultimately, who are the customers using the Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability? They belong to an industry, and they belong to a region that might have unique regulations and compliance requirements. So absolutely, we think of it. And the other thing is, again, this is where, it's the Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability, meaning a lot of these solutions that us or partners build are interoperable, right? So that is very much part of how we're building this. And it's a great point because we're seeing, for example, in this region, there might be special requirements around regulations. There might be some special requirements around healthcare. And that is why, we love to say it's very extensible. You'll never fall off a cliff because it's extensible, and you'll never run out of gas because you can go as deep as you want to make it relevant for your industry and your region.
Electricity.
Electricity, sorry. Yes. Yeah.
Can I just add?
Yes.
I think the other part of the extensibility is important, but also how we are making this about an ecosystem, bringing lots of partners. As I said, going around the world, finding out how do we come together. We're not going to be able to do this alone. So the way the platform has been built enables the extensibility, but now it's about going out and bringing customers together from around each industry to see what works in each industry that could be applicable to other industries. And that's where my team and what we are tasked with doing specifically.
We'll take one more question, and don't go anywhere because there is a special treat at the end for those who stay in their seats. So just letting you know. No, you're making sure they get their treat.
There's a lot of talk at COP about climate action, and what I think gets overlooked sometimes is the people that contributed the least to climate change, the people who are suffering the most from climate change are women, children, and residents in rural Africa. And as we're talking about data, I love what you said, Satish, about getting your data, sanitizing your data, harmonizing your data, making intelligence out of it, and that drives action. And what gets measured gets
managed.
Yeah.
What you report, you can report to transform.
Exactly. Yep. And so where I really struggle is the S in ESG. Because you can measure emissions, you can measure how many liters of water, you can measure kilowatts of electricity. Have you got any, can you share some challenges
do you want to talk about your platform
So,
from
in
an
ter-
S,
was that?
from an S perspective?
Yeah, so I think, listen, I think the social, so this is where, there's a lot of partner solutions and extensibility that we have on top of this data, right? So there's multiple signals. One is this data, and to Melanie's point, the report that we put out. So there's the data-driven insights, and then there's the subjective and analytical stuff that happens on top. So if you look at our sustainability report, it's a mix of what comes out of the analysts, the data and everything. And on top of it, there is other, like for example, there's other data providers where the S part of it can augment some of the data that we have here, right? So some of the examples, like folks like EcoVadis is one partner that provides data into this. So there's also data providers that have a lot of information about that subjective and some of the S aspects that brings in the information here that augments everything that's here. So that's where it is data, but it is also more. And I think that's where ultimately, when we think about the Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability around ESG, it is everything that we build here with the partner ecosystem and partnering with folks. And it's mostly going to be partners, right? Microsoft is definitely not going to do it all. So that's where we partner with these partners that have a lot of that data that can augment this, so the customer has that 360 view, on top of which they can build customer-specific sustainable reports like what Microsoft does and what many of our customers are doing on top of this tooling and on top of that expertise on top of it.
Can I add one thing? I think one thing too to flag, which is what's happening in Europe, the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, the CSRD, which is going across environmental, social, and governance. But it's one of the first times, frankly, that there is this disclosure that is going across all three, ES and G. And the Europeans have put out sort of guidance and recommendations across what's the data you want for E, both qualitative and quantitative, what to do for S, and what to do for G. And in the process of working with our team here, and I'm going to ask quickly, could some of our experts around the room, Cassie, raise your hand. We have some colleagues here that have been working very extensively on understanding CSRD and what that means for companies and our partners across ES and G metrics. And so when it comes to that, on the S, what are the aspects of S to be measured, to be reported on into the European system, which, to be honest, is going to be something you're going to see move around the world. It's not just going to be carboned off to just the European companies. And I think through that process, we're going to learn more and more about what is the data around S we're going to start to collect and report on. Some of it is qualitative, but some of it is moving into the quantitative space. Not as much so as we have in environmental to date. There's a lot of quantitative, just like you pointed out, but how do you think about it? There's also work that's coming out around climate risk and adaptation and how we think about that from a business perspective. And that's another great way that brings in the social component of how are women and children affected, how do extreme weather events and future climate risk and extreme weather events affect a core business, and really start to turn that into what is the financial materiality of extreme weather events, extreme heat to businesses, which gives me a lot of hope, because once you start to report on this information, that's the ability then to start to transform your business because of it. And that's where I love the idea that we have these reporting directives, because it's going to help us be able to understand where those impacts are coming from and what we can do to help affect them.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the reason I turned it over to Satish is that exactly what Melanie said. With CSRD, it's been a major focus of the team here. And what that means is now we'll finally have a way to measure effectively so that we can make change. Just what Melanie said. But we need to put that in place first. And that is exactly what this platform that Satish and team have built will enable us to do.
So we did get Microsoft pin, so you can't tell who are all the experts around the room. And I won't put anybody on the spot other than someone I just put on the spot. But if there is a question, you could show up to any of these meeting areas to meet one of our experts and ask a question or learn more. I do want to be mindful of your time. You've been incredibly patient and you've been great audience for all of us. And so now, two things. The special surprise, but also what you can do next. So first is their QR codes you can scan all around here to stay in touch and learn more. And secondly, for those that are interested in, I want to give a quick little shout out to what we're doing around zero waste and circularity. One of the things we've done there is for our data centers, we have circularity centers to deal with our zero waste goal by 2030, but we've also built it into product design. And one of the things that we're really proud of is our ocean plastic mouse. It's a mouse that's made from sort of ocean debris and ocean plastics. And so we actually have the ocean mouse here for anyone who is interested in taking a look at the ocean mouse or taking one ocean mouse home. So don't forget to grab that on your way out as well. But with that, really, thank you so much for being here. I know there's a lot of things you could be doing today at this giant complex. And so I really appreciate all of you being here to get a chance to learn a little bit more about our sustainability journey, but also how this can empower your business to get on your own sustainability journey at the same time. So thank you so much. And thanks to Shelly and Satish for joining.
Thank you. That was fun.